Monopoly by Grit.
Welcome to Monopoly. Welcome to Season 6. I can't believe we have completed 5 seasons so far. By popular demand, we have a very special guest back into the podcast. He is Greg Ahrbeck, a seasoned property expert who has wealth of experience in the property industry. And we are going to talk about a very, very interesting topic. We're going to talk about commercial real estate landscape in Australia. Welcome back, Greg.
Yeah, thanks, Naveen. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me again.
Everyone wanted you back.
Oh, jeez. Don't know why.
Yeah, so we are talking about commercial. I mean, we have been talking about residential all day long. I mean, most of the people talk about residential.
Yeah, it's the landscape is always residential. I think because commercial has always been in that too hard pocket where it's held by big institutions. As soon as you want to get involved with commercial, you go big dollars, and it cannot be done. Now looking at things differently, and you're always innovative. There's some new products out there that could open that market up for smaller investors that would typically buy a residential property.
Yeah, and I think the market is it's so attractive for investors out there because people have been seeing houses, apartments, townhouses, and we feel people are fed up of all that.
Yeah, I think so. It just gives them a bit of a, like if we're presenting, or people that are talking to their clients present different options, they can go, well, here's an apartment, here's a house and land, and now we can actually offer you a commercial property which is in a similar price point. And that's the key thing, similar price point, because up to now they couldn't do that. So, and there's quite a few things that make commercial interesting.
Yeah. Let's talk about those stuff. The juicy stuff.
The juicy stuff. Firstly, I might touch on it first.
Yeah.
If you're a foreign investor, and typically if you're buying a residential property, you've got to get FIRB approval, you've got FIRB fees, and you've got this additional stamp duty that you have to pay. Now, if you put that on one side, you go, a commercial property, no FIRB fee, no FIRB application required, and you only pay standard stamp duty of around 5.5%. So when you're comparing apples with apples, you go, hang on, that's worth a look.
Yeah. And I mean, if you convert that to dollars, let's say 600,000 property versus 600,000 commercial property.
Yep.
On a 600,000 property, a FIRB investor would spend about 75,000 on stamp duty.
Yes.
14,700.
Yep.
Whereas now he'll be paying only 5.5%.
5% of that purchase price.
Which is about 30,000. So you're saving close to $50,000.
Exactly. So straight away, as a foreign investor, you got to look at it.
Yeah.
It needs to be a consideration.
Correct.
So yeah.
And even from a local investor's point of view, there's no outgoings.
Yeah, I was just about to say that there. Typically, if you compare apples with apples, I love to do this now because it's important. Residential property, you get a return, so you get your rental. Out of that comes OC fees, rates, all your outgoings are covered. You have to pay for them as the landlord. And you normally only get a short-term lease. When you say short-term lease, people run leases at about a year at a time. Then you go commercial property. All the outgoings are picked up by the tenant. So everything, rates, OC fees, all that sort of stuff. So your return is a net return. So what you're getting is whatever your rent is, that is your rent. And typically in a residential property, they're also paying for their electricity or water, same as there. So it's when you compare apples, the returns look a lot better with a commercial property, and you get typically they're signing longer term leases, so 2 to 5 years, and there's usually increases in rent over that period. So you're not every year trying to find a new tenant, having to renovate it. These guys move in, they do their fit out, and it looks like it's a longer term tenant, which is less hassle, I guess, in terms of managing it. Yeah.
And it's the net rent you got to look at.
Absolutely. So, you go, I'm getting, so let's assume you're getting on a 600,000 property in the city, you might get 550 or 600 a week, something in that sort of order. If you were getting a similar sort of the returns on commercial are between 4 and 5% net.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Big difference.
It's quite a difference. People go, oh, but why? We thought commercial was a higher return, but if I can cover that, the value. So also, when you're investing in property, you're always looking at what sort of. You're also hoping to get some increase in the capital value. Capital values in this type of investment have seen some good growth, so the yields come down, but it's still a net return relative to a gross return on a residential property.
Correct.
Yeah.
And also, if you look at demand and supply, in an area where there's warehouses, it's all zoned. So there's not many. It's not like a residential estate where you can do 10,000 homes.
No. There's very limited opportunity,
Yeah.
and it's sort of put into commercial zones, industrial 1, industrial 3, what they call commercial zones.
Yeah.
Whereas a residential thing, they can go, okay, let's get another subdivision and another subdivision and another subdivision. So the supply is limited.
Yeah.
And obviously that's good. Supply and demand, less is better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how you get the capital growth.
Absolutely.
And also, if there's only 20 warehouses in that particular area, everyone wants that.
Yep. And then also talking about that as well, beforehand, there were all the units were like big. And this is as a direct result of things like COVID, when you had lockdowns and you had a lot of traditional retailers learned to trade remotely and they don't need a shop front anymore. So your typical type of tenant that you expect in a commercial, you're expecting dirty industries, mechanics, all that, it's still there. So but your pool of potential tenants is a lot bigger now. You've got e-businesses, you've got tradies, and they like this sort of thing because they've got a warehouse component and they've got an office component, and they can come in there and it's a small unit.
Exactly. And let's talk about the risks.
Yep.
An investor would have in investing in commercial real estate. I mean, as far as I can see, it's just that your tenant might take a little bit longer to find rather than a residential property.
Yep.
But these are long-term tenants, as we spoke before.
The other thing as well, what we try to do when we're dealing with, and we're also got to be the right developer, we try and say to them, can you offer us a rental guarantee? Okay, so far we've been able to do that. And that then, just ticking a few boxes, you get, when you're investing in that, you go, well, if I don't have a tenant right away, I'm still getting a guarantee from the landlord until such time as I have a tenant. So we try and limit that risk. It's not on every project, but we try and do that. So that would be a potential risk if you don't have a rental guarantee. But the demand would appear to be there. Otherwise, people wouldn't be building these units.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's how we mitigate that risk for the clients.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And another guy was asking me, if it's off the plan, especially while the construction is going on, if the builder goes bust, what happens?
Yep.
The answer to that is, it's just like a residential home.
Exactly the same.
So you just go through the insurance process, you go through VMIA, get yourself compensated, and then hand it over to another builder to continue.
The other thing as well, commercial property, when we're talking warehousing and stuff like that, the construction process and what it's made of is a lot simpler. It's a standardized sort of frame. So what they do, they put footings down. They then get prefabricated tilt panels, which are then braced together. A slab goes down, a steel structure goes on the top, and it's a very standardized way of building, which is known to be long-lasting and pretty rigorous, but it's got a lot less, like a house, you've got framing and this and that and all these. It's a very standardized and very simple way of building.
Yeah, if you look at the houses, after the fixed stage, it takes a long time for you to finish because there's so many fittings, there are tiles and this and that, whereas warehouses, you just...
Warehouse, they also we try and get guys that are putting in a reasonable kitchen, but still, those services come in, the slab goes down, and it's done. So where you could be waiting, say for an apartment building, I'm just now comparing it not with typical res, but in an apartment building where if you buy off the plan, it could take up to 3 years before you see it finished. From start to finish, this is a 10-month process. And then you're going, well, I've put my 10% down, but I should be getting my return pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a faster process for construction.
Yep.
And as you said, you got to pick the right builder too.
Absolutely. And it's very important, location. And you push that. We always push location. So be very careful where you're going to buy. So you look at that, then look at the builder. Look at the product that they putting out. A lot of builders will just do a very basic shell. The guys that we've been working with or looking at working with, they give that little bit more. Where you got polished floors, painted painted walls, good kitchens, all that sort of stuff. Make sure they're a good builder, like you're saying, and that can limit the risk. Because as we did say, in residential, there's a statutory warranty. On commercial, there's no statutory warranty, but there's warranties from the builder in a different format. So, yeah.
And in terms of the construction process and the material they use, again, it's all about the builder. It's just like a residential contract. We got to check what are the inclusions, what are you going to get out of the warehouse or whatever commercial space you're going to buy.
Yes.
That's very important.
Absolutely. So as you go, before you get in there, and us as consultants, if we're talking to a client, we've got to go show them this is the product. And it's also very good on some of the products that we are looking at, there is completed stuff. So if you're buying off one of the projects that could be off the plan, you can actually take them to something that they can actually see what it will look like and not just a render. So there's a lot of different things that you're saying. If that's not the case, then look at the detail. Make sure what you are getting. But in a commercial warehouse type space, there's not much. So it's it's not like a house where what taps am I getting, what shower screen am I getting. You've got 4 walls, a decent roof, a good roller shutter, some good lighting, and those are the key things. Make sure the structure is good.
Yeah. And also in terms of warehousing, I mean, you can call a warehouse a little garage, right?
Yeah.
It can be 25 square meters. I have seen people selling that stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
But then again, you got to think about who's going to use it, how can you resell it. So you got to find that right balance.
Yep.
As you said, if it's a warehouse, the warehouse space is there, and if it's a mezzanine floor with an office, that will add value for someone who's using it.
Absolutely, because then they have that ability. They're using the warehouse downstairs for their goods. For instance, let's assume an e-business. So they have their goods downstairs. They've got an office upstairs where they've, it's air conditioned. They've got their desks. They're doing their business up there. When they need to deliveries go out there. So those type of units, depending, you might get someone that just wants a warehouse, but I would say a warehouse with a bit of a mezzanine gives your market, you get a bit more flexibility in who you can get as a tenant into your property.
Correct. Yeah. And also, I mean, you get the occasional buyers or renters who wants bigger spaces.
Yes.
But then as an investor who is going to buy some space, if you stick to 100 to 175 square meters in size, I think that's a pretty decent size.
So that seems to be, when we call them mini units, that's where there seems to be this explosion in demand for that. And it even had guys that are, builders or they're cabinet makers or tradies. They would normally maybe operate from home. Now this gives them the opportunity to be able to near home, but have an opportunity to go and do their work from a proper area that they can store, operate from, and it works. It's a different, having these new type of mini units has opened up that market to that type of tenant.
Yeah. And people who have already invested in commercial warehouses or commercial properties, they never go back to residential. That has been a trend which I have been seeing.
I don't know that, but I'm assuming that's the case because they would see, they're getting a net return, they get a long-term tenant, the management of it is less, and the returns, and they're going to see some growth depending on the area that they're in. So that will probably be a good thing. I also wanted to touch on is GST. Okay, if I can talk about that. With a residential property, the price is the price, but you don't realize that in the price is already GST. When you buy a commercial property, you have to add GST. But depending on how you structured, you can claim that back. Whereas in a residential property, it's done. So it's actually interesting that people get a little bit of I've now got to pay GST. But if you structure yourself correctly,
that is something you can get back again.
You can potentially get that back.
Yeah.
And you are paying GST anyway.
Yeah.
On a residential property, it's just in the price. So it's not as though you're paying more for the commercial property.
And if you talk about the structure, the best structure to go with in buying a commercial property, if you're buying as an individual, you have to have an ABN.
Yes, you got to be registered for GST.
Yeah.
And obviously get advice from your accountants and stuff like that. But if you got an ABN and you're registered for GST, then there's the opportunity to claim back those GST inputs that you've put in.
And if you're established business, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
You're paying GST anyway.
Yep.
This is plus GST, but you're going to claim it back from your business.
The other thing as well, Naveen, depending on the property, if there's an existing lease on the property, it can be sold to you as
a going concern. Correct.
You have to be registered for GST, but if there's a lease, and we're just going to look at individual sort of circumstances, you could have, I better not use the word avoid. You don't have to pay GST because it's a going concern. Yeah.
There's there's a lot of tweaks in the market, but you got to talk to us to understand this.
Yeah. So that's just giving, because it's interesting, but it's not, when you get your head around it, it's pretty straightforward.
Very straightforward. Yeah. And people love it once they get into it because it's less hassle as an investor.
Well, as you were saying, like if you've got a residential property and you manage a lot of property yourself, you constantly get the taps leaking. That's not working. The gate's not shutting. You've got a lot of management issues. Commercial properties, it's a warehouse. You've got 4 walls. Yes, you have a kitchen. Yes, you have a toilet, whatever it is. But the rest of it is pretty straightforward in terms of management and less intensive management, longer leases, better returns.
And a lot of people are worried about tenants breaking it apart. So break that apart.
I don't know how you can do it. If you've been in some of the units we do, the structure of these things, those are prefabricated concrete walls, whereas a residential building is a frame with a veneer wall. You smash that, you can smash it. If you smash that wall at the commercial thing, you're going to smash your hand because it's not that plyboard or whatever you want to call it. That is bloody solid concrete. Your walls are concrete. Yeah. So.
And talking about commercial real estate, I mean, some people think it's only for investors, but no, there are a lot of owner-occupiers out there who have specific requirements. Beforehand, again, most of these guys would have to go into a much bigger unit than what they actually need. But because that's all they could get. Now with these type of developments, it goes, well, geez, now I can get 100 square meters. That's all I need. I need a place to park my ute, to put my plumbing stuff, whatever it is. And that's why service industries can also strongly looking at owner occupiers on that sort of thing as well. Yeah. For example, I recently got an inquiry. It's from Michelin. Michelin wants to do a distribution center in the West.
Yeah.
They wanted 1,500 square meters. They wanted to have a specific requirement on what they want on the floor.
Yeah.
They have a specific requirement where they need at least 2 40-foot containers to come in.
Yes.
They wanted to be close to the port so that they can. So there are, owner occupiers out there who wants those specific
plenty. And then if you get the right developer as well, when it's off the plan.
Yeah.
And while it's being built, if you bring someone along like that, you can go, okay, well, I just don't put that wall in.
Yeah.
And now we got that flexibility.
Yeah.
Because of the simplicity of the construction of these type of buildings,
yeah,
you do have flexibility with potential with owners of those properties.
And after all, it's a $1.7 trillion market in Australia.
I didn't realize that.
It's not small.
No, because a lot of this stuff is held by big institutions, funds, all that sort of stuff, because they're buying shopping centers, they're buying big factories, they're buying all that sort of stuff. It's a very big market.
Yeah.
Now it gives mom and dads or whatever it is a chance to get it to have some action in that particular market.
Correct.
Yeah.
Anything else we want to talk about commercial?
I think that covers it.
That's it.
Yeah, you know me, I don't like to talk much.
Yeah.
Except some people tell me, "Can you just shut up?" You know? But I think that covers it. I think in Pricey, when you go, I love to look at the two. You got if we summarize it, apartment or residential property versus commercial, same price point, better returns on commercial. I'd say less risk in some extent once you have a tenant, and the ongoing maintenance is less. So as long as you can get your head around going, well, my kids are not going to live in it. I'm just doing this purely as an investment. I think commercial is a very, very good option because you can now get it in that sub-million price point.
Yeah. It just ticks all the boxes investors need. Price is less.
Yep.
Outgoings are almost zero.
Yeah.
Better return.
Yep.
Better capital growth.
And it's sitting in that, what I call the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Most people are looking to invest in something that's sort of sub-million.
Yeah.
Typically, you couldn't because most of commercial stuff would be way over that.
Correct.
So this type of investment that is now we've got on the table opens that up to that type of investment.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. Commercial real estate in Australia is not something you should ignore. You got to get yourself educated. Please talk to us and we can walk you through how you can get into commercial real estate in Australia.